Hello and welcome back to the Rooted in the Seasons podcast, where we explore how ancient wisdom meets modern life with a strong cup of tea and a dose of practical tools for busy women. I'm Katja Patel, Ayurvedic diet and lifestyle consultant, yoga teacher and teacher mentor, and someone who helps you find calm and clarity through small daily routines, seasonal rhythm, and timeless wisdom. In today's episode, I want to talk about something that gets lost in the way we tend to see yoga, especially in the West. And it is this question: what is yoga actually meant to do? What is yoga actually meant to do? Because if you're like most people, and like me years ago, you might think of yoga mainly as moving your body into different shapes, stretching, maybe breathing a little more deeply. But yoga has always been about something deeper. It's really about the mind. I'll be honest. The Yoga Sutras, which are one of the most famous texts about yoga that we are working with in the West, were actually one of the most confusing things I came across during my own teacher training. The translation didn't make any sense to me at the time, so I set it aside. It wasn't until years later when I'd see little quotes pop up in yoga magazines or hear them in workshops that my curiosity was sparked again. There was something about these short little sutras, almost like poetic threads of wisdom, that felt oddly familiar, as if I already knew them somehow, but hadn't quite figured out how to work with them. So today I want to explore what these sutras really saying, and more importantly, how they still matter in our modern lives. Because whether you're a yoga teacher, a curious student, or someone who often feels overwhelmed, stuck in the head, and wants to feel a bit calmer, there's something here for you. So here's a sentence for you. The real point of yoga, it's not about touching your toes. Patanjali, who is often credited with compiling the Yoga Sutras, starts right off in the second line with the purpose of yoga. And it is so simple. Yoga is stilling the fluctuations of the mind. So, not fancy poses, not standing on your head. It's about calming your mind. So, all that constant spinning, the worries, the comparisons, the lists, the doubts, they all start to quiet down. And then in the very next line, we hear what happens when the mind settles. Then the seer rests in their own true nature. This is one of my favorite lines. It tells us that beneath all that noise, our natural state isn't stress, anxiety, or endless to-do lists. It's calm. It's clear. It's content. It's a little bit like how your body always tries to come back to balance, to homeostasis. Your mind is trying to do that too. Yoga at its heart is about helping us remember that place and return to it more often. So just to recap for a moment, yoga is really about calming the mind. When we do that, we rest in our natural state, which is actually steady and clear. Pretty different from the image of twisting into shapes on the mat, right? So how do we get there? Patanjali doesn't tell us the goal and walks away. He gives us a roadmap right in the first chapter. It says, the mind becomes steady through practice and non-attachment. In the first chapter, in the Sutra 12. So two things, practice, called abhyas in Sanskrit, and non-attachment or vairagya. Practice. Why does it need to be regular? Now, practice doesn't mean doing something once in a while, or just when you feel, or just when we feel motivated. Patanjali is actually really clear about this. He says, practice becomes firmly grounded when well attended for a long time, without break, and in all earnestness, in the 14th sutra of the first chapter. So what does it mean for us? It means practice needs to be continuous, ideally daily, and not just in fits and starts. It's the regularity, even if it's something short, that matters most. Without it, the mind slips back into its old patterns very quickly. And when we don't have a practice, something to come back to, we fall back into those subconscious habits, the fear, the doubt, the distractions, the reactivity. All those old loops running in the background without us even noticing. Practice is what interrupts that. It's what brings us back. Just take a moment and see if that feels true for you. Can you think of a time when you didn't have something steady? And how easy it was to get pulled back into old stories or stress? Non-attachment, letting go of the outcome. Now, non-attachment is the trickier part. Let's say you're working towards something like headstand, or a new habit, or even a calmer mind. And after a few weeks, you think, by now, I really should have nailed this. That thought can turn into frustration or self-doubt. Maybe you even feel like giving up. But that's where Patanjali says, keep going without the drama. Let go of the outcome. Stay with the process. It's a little bit like brushing your teeth. No big story around it. Just do it. It's this combination, steady, repeated practice without hanging all your hopes on a particular result, that starts to shift things. I'll repeat. It's the combination, steady, repeated practice without hanging all your hopes on a particular result. That's when the shift starts. So again, let's anchor in this. It's not about doing something intensely once a week. It's about showing up consistently and not clinging to what it's supposed to look like. What gets in the way of that? Of course, even with the best intentions, the path can feel slippery. Patanjali lists 10 common obstacles. Things like disease, doubt, carelessness, laziness, distractions, or slipping back after making progress. Sound familiar? We've all been there. Often the hardest part is simply starting again after we've fallen off track. That's why this daily or at least regular practice is so powerful. It makes it harder for these obstacles to get a strong grip. Not because we are perfect, but because we keep returning over and over and over again. Now, if you do fall down the rabbit hole, which we all do, Patanjali does not leave us there. He gives 7 practical ways to bring the mind back to steadiness. You don't have to try all of them. Just pick one that feels right, one that resonates with you. So here are the 7. The first one is cultivate the right attitude. And Patanjali gives us examples. Friendliness towards the happy. Compassion for the unhappy. Delight in the virtuous. And disregard for the not so great behavior of others. So if we cultivate this attitude, if we can be friendly towards the ones who are happy, even if we are not happy in our life at that particular moment, that's such a major uplift. If we show compassion and empathy for the ones who are unhappy, because we all have been there, and so if we try to help, that really lifts not just us. Being with the virtuous and being happy for them, that's so powerful. And equally disregarding the ones whose behavior is not agreeing with our not standards, and not getting worked up, but just disregarding them. Not getting sucked into their drama. That is also super powerful. So my teacher always said, if you don't do anything, just try to cultivate those attitudes. So the second tool that Patanjali gives us is use your breath. Slower the exhalation in the posts revolving around the breathing. There are more explanations why. Because slowing the exhalation calms our nervous system and switches it into rest and digest. Breath retention means pausing the breath after the out breath or after the in breath. The third one is notice subtle sensations, because we have senses. So when we focus on our senses, you feel your feet on the ground, you feel your breath over your upper lip, you see a beautiful image, or just see nature, you smell a beautiful fragrance. Fourth one is focus on your inner light. So inner light, you might think, I don't know where my inner light is, but you can look at the outer light. Gaze at a candle, a beeswax, or a ghee light. They are both cooling the eye. And see this as a representation of your inner light. The fifth one is reflect on someone who radiates calm, on someone who is already there where you want to be. The sixth one is remember moments of peace from sleep or dreams. Or look at your dreams. What are they about? Because they tell us about what we are keeping busy with. And the seventh one is focus on anything that uplifts you. Nature, music, silence. You see, none of these require fancy tools, hours of time, just intention. And also the ability to come back, notice when we slip, and remember one of those, and come back to that one tool to pull you out again. So this brings us back to what yoga really is about, and where it all circles back to the start. Yoga is stilling the fluctuations of the mind. Then the seer rests in their own true nature. Remember, your true nature, the calm, clear, steady part of you, isn't some far-off thing. It is already there. That's how you were born. But without practice, the layers of stress, of fear, of old habits cover it up again. And that's why showing up regularly, patiently, without getting tangled in expectations matters so much. Each time you come back to your breath, to your body, to a quiet moment, you peel away another layer. And you get a little closer to that calm, clear place that's been there all along. So, I leave you with this. Which of these little tools could you try this week? No pressure, just you noticing where you might slip, where you come from a place of fear, where that doubt is coming in, and that helps you to come back to yourself. And if this sparked something in you, I'd love to hear. Did this feel relatable? Did it give you a new way to see yoga, or even your own mind? Drop me a message in the comments. I always love hearing your reflections. Thanks for listening and for being willing to explore this deeper side of yoga with me today. Until next time, take good care of yourself and bye for now. If you liked this episode, please subscribe to the podcast and share it with someone who might benefit from hearing that, who needs to hear that. Thank you.